Okay.
Ready?
Almost. It's still setting up the stream. Okay, now we're good to go.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Mhm.
It's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and let me start by welcoming everybody. It's October. We still have a couple of months left in 2020.
Did you have to say that?
Nisa, do you want to introduce Auden to everyone?
Thought about it, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to save that for the board meeting.
Well,
I'm happy to.
We'll do it twice because we have different people at both meetings.
So we have a special welcome today. It's to Auden Lung. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Auden. She is our new admin assistant, and we've already seen her work this past week. So I am very excited to have her join the team. So welcome, Auden.
Oh my.
And Andy or Auden, do you want to add anything?
No, I'm really excited. Auden's going to bring yes, I would like to add something. Auden is going to bring a lot of great qualities and support to our organization. I'm looking at technology and a lot of interests in everything we do. So she has a background in advocacy, and she's a senior at UC Davis, but has done a lot of advocacy work. And so she's going to be a great addition to our team. I know you're all going to love working with them.
And Auden is a local, so that's great.
Yes, from Campbell.
Okay, so with that, do you want to do the roll call, Andy?
I'm going to let Auden do the roll call.
Oh, okay.
Yay.
Then I'm happy I introduced her.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I know it's a hard time, but I appreciate so much the work you guys are doing, and I'm excited to learn more. So, okay, roll call. I'm gonna start with Campbell.
Here.
Okay. Cupertino.
Here.
Gilroy.
Here.
Los Altos.
Here.
Los Altos Hills.
Here.
Los Gatos.
Here.
Milpitas.
Here.
Monte Sereno. Morgan Hill. Absent. Mountain View. Absent. Palo Alto.
You're muted, Liz.
Oh, Liz is here.
Liz is here? Okay.
Here, but muted.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I'm here.
Okay, hi. San Jose.
Here and go Aggies.
Are you going to say that every time, Chappie?
Yes, I am.
Good. Okay. Saratoga.
Present.
Sunnyvale.
Here.
And then is Steve Preminger at this?
No,
Not only for the board of directors.
right.
Okay.
And Santa Clara is here. You missed me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I called that. I'm sorry, Santa Clara.
Santa Clara in the house.
That's right, girl.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
then
do we have quorum, Auden?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up on the agenda, we have the consent item. And the only thing we have is our minutes from our meeting on September 20th. Any questions or discussion?
Motion to approve.
second.
Second.
So hold on. So that was a motion by Chappie Jones. From
I
San
heard,
Jose.
and Liz, I heard Chappie, then Liz.
Okay, and then a second by
By me.
Liz Ness of Palo Alto.
Yes.
So we have a change here. Auden will be taking the minutes. So. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
All right, roll call. Campbell,
Yes.
Cupertino,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Los Altos,
Yes.
Los Altos Hills,
Yes.
Los Gatos,
Aye.
Milpitas,
Aye.
Montesano,
Here, yes.
Palo Alto,
Here. Yes.
San Jose made the motion, so Santa Clara,
Yes.
Saratoga,
Aye.
and Sunnyvale.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes.
Unanimously, great. Thank you. And next up, we have discussion of a few 4 statewide ballot measures. And we also have a special guest speaker on Proposition 19, which is changes to certain property tax rules. We have Sandra Lowe with us, who is a proponent of Proposition 19. And Andy tried to get a speaker opposed to Proposition 19, and unfortunately, we weren't able to do so. So we'll hear from Sandra. Auden and myself did our own opposition research. So we'll hope to present some of those questions to Sandra and also for the discussion. Because as the group knows, we normally discuss the propositions and then we decide whether or not we want to recommend support to the board, opposition, or just not take a position. And so with that, I will turn it over to Sandra. And Sandra, is 10 minutes enough time?
Yeah, I think that's more than enough time. I
Oh,
think
then
it's
5 minutes, 10 minutes or less. You have
10
up
minutes
to
or
10
less.
minutes. Don't feel like you need to use all of it.
I won't. I'd love to leave it for your questions because I think that's really where when we're have a dialogue, you learn more about it. So let me just introduce myself. I'm working on the Yes on 19 campaign. My background is I worked for the California Teachers Association for 20 years as a political director there, and then went on and worked for the California Democratic Party in the 2018 cycle as the senior strategist. So my background is always in campaigns, but always doing something that's going to help our communities. I'm a career teacher myself, and I think earlier on we were talking, and I actually served on a school board for 8 years. So I just commend you all for your service to your communities. I took a dose of my own medicine by serving, just to make sure that it was something I understood, not just from the political perspective, but on the job. So thank you. I live in a, and I'm speaking to you from my home, which is in Sonoma, California, which is significant to this measure and why I was attracted to work on it. Tomorrow will be the 3rd anniversary of a horrendous fire that went through my community and destroyed 5% of all of the homes in Sonoma County. As a result of that, I had people living in my home for a year, unable to find another place to live. So I feel like I've lived the experience that although my home was not harmed, certainly I've lived the experience, and this last month has brought it all back again, with hundreds of homes and businesses destroyed in this area. But if you have listened to what the governor has said, he said that there isn't a place in California that isn't at risk for, because of the changing climate, et cetera, to catastrophic fires. So that is the impetus behind Proposition 19. It was put on the ballot by the state legislature in a bipartisan way, getting 2/3 in both houses. The principal author was Kevin Mullen, your neighbor up in San Mateo. And so it was put on the ballot, and it was the firefighters worked with the realtors who had another ballot measure that they wanted to bring forward. But the firefighters went to them and said, we're not going to get any resources from this. There are many fire districts that were formed after Prop 13, before Prop 13, there's, have affected the funding. And you probably know from your communities, I can give you the ones in Santa Clara. But he said, they said, if some of this money isn't directed towards CAL FIRE, and some of these underfunded fire districts, then, it's not going to help us. And, the realtors and the firefighters, they both have an interest in preserving homes and making sure people are housed. So they found a meeting of the minds, and the realtors dropped their measure in favor of the compromise that was put forth by the legislature. And what it does is basically three things. The first thing it does is it allows people who are victims of wildfire or some natural disaster, seniors over 55 and the disabled, to move to a more appropriate home without having to start all over with a property tax. Now in Santa Clara County, you already have this, and you've had it for many years because it was Proposition 90, like 30 years ago, and counties could opt in to this portability program. So you already have the ability, if my house burns down, I can go to Santa Clara County and buy a home at basically the same price of my assessed value and pay the property tax that I'm currently paying. So this is a program that the largest counties in California have had for, as I said, almost 30 years. Los Angeles, Alameda, Santa Clara, San Mateo, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, etc. They've had this program. But the problem is a lot of these wildfires are in places that are in rural small counties where there's nowhere around them to go. And, people in Sonoma County are more likely to move to Lake or Napa or Mendocino than they are to San Diego. So the concept here is let's have the same program for everyone in California, and make sure that if people, if they lose their home or they become disabled, they want to move closer to their kids, they don't have to worry about where their kids live in California. They can move there. So my mom lives in Contra Costa County, can move to Sonoma County if this happens, or she could move up to Humboldt County where my sister lives. And, in most cases, seniors, pare down the size of their homes, downsize a bit, and this is a great help to them. It also, really gets the economy going, because what we found out is that people are staying in their homes an average of 20 years as opposed to 7 years as it used to be. And because they can't move, even if they have equity, and as you know, the houses in the Bay Area, we have tremendous equity if we bought early. But, what's that equity going to do if we have to start all over and pay, the beginning of a property tax all over again? So that's the first part of it. And this was to really, benefit those groups of people most vulnerable. The second part of it is to put some resources into our communities. And this is the one that really got me going, because I'm always the one who wants to see more resources for local government and schools, etc. So this closes a property tax loophole on inherited property. So right now we're the only state that after you inherit a home, there's no reassessment that takes place. You inherit the home, you get the current property tax, you get the home, that's the way it goes. What we are proposing in Prop 19 is if you inherit a home and you live in it and it's your primary residence, all good, you inherit the current property tax up to $1 million in assessed valuation. And then, you would pay the property tax difference. However, if you don't live in that home and you use it for Airbnb, or you rent it, or it's a second, third, or fourth home, then that home is reassessed. And the reassessing of homes throughout California will start off by bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars, growing into $5 billion for schools, cities, counties, special districts, fire districts, etc. So, and it's general fund money, and you all, city council members, that's the best stuff, right? Because you get to make the local decision as to how you want that money spent. So there's no earmarking this. So what happens on the third piece of the proposition is that because there's an increase of money that will go into the local school districts through the local control funding formula, Prop 98, which I understand very well, then the state doesn't have to put as much of a match in there because the local property tax will take care of most of that. And that savings from the state level will go into this special fund for these underfunded fire districts and CAL FIRE. And that's where that special pot of money goes. And that's the only earmarked money in this whole program. The rest of it is just pure general fund money that helps in your cities. So we're endorsed by the governor, all the constitutional officers, the Democratic Party, the California Federation of Labor. We are not opposed by the Republican Party. And in fact, we have the Business Roundtable and many chambers of commerce have come on board with this program. They see it as it's an economic stimulator to local, to your local communities, and it helps people at the time that they need the help. So we feel like we're really well suited for, bringing people together. Our only opposition, real opposition, is the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, who authored the ballot measure against us, along with one Republican state senator and one Democratic assembly member from Eastern Sacramento County. So I'll stop there and take questions. How'd I do? 5?
No, you did. No, you went about 5, but it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandra. And just to add to what you said, based on our opposition research, I just want to mention a couple other groups
Please.
that have opposed Proposition 19. Some local newspapers have come out against it. The Mercury News, the Chronicle, the LA Times, the Cupertino Chamber of Commerce has also come out against it. And one that really struck me was the League of Women Voters. But I will now pause and open it up for questions from members of the committee. And let me check. I know Steve is always saying, Nisa, check who has, and Steve is up. You're first, Steve. Go ahead. I know. I always forget to check.
So let me say, I love the inheritance provision. It's really unfair that someone inherits a property, turns it into an investment property, and gets to reap the benefits of the high rent while paying the very low property taxes. But my question is this. Let's say someone owns a house in a rural county, has an assessed value of $100,000, buys a house in San Jose for $1 million. Did they transfer that $100,000 assessment to San Jose? And then where does San Jose get the property tax?
They'd have to pay the difference. So their first $100,000 would be under their current property tax base, and the $900,000 will be assessed appropriately. So you can buy a house that's more expensive than the house you leave, but you have to pay the difference in property tax for the difference. So it's not
okay. So the big deal. So, but if you buy a house that's less expensive than the house you leave,
right?
You wouldn't want to take your assessed value with you anyway, right? Because the new house is cheaper.
Yeah, but your house is cheaper, but maybe when you purchased it, it was even more cheaper. if you get my, so in other words, let's say your house is $200,000 now, and you live in, I don't know where you live for $200,000, but let's assume that this house exists. But maybe you bought it for $50,000. So if you buy another house for $200,000, you're paying your $50,000 assessed value tax. That's your benefit that you get in that scenario.
Right. So I mean, I think the issue here is the county that you move to is really losing out on property tax revenue.
Well, you have it right now in Santa Clara County.
Right, I know, but you can't take it anywhere in the state. And I see, more and more counties dropped out of Prop 90 participation. I think El Dorado County dropped out a couple of years ago. And I think the reason was they were seeing people move to their counties and buy a house, and they were losing the property tax because if it had sold for market price to somebody that didn't get the benefit, then they would have gotten more property tax revenue. So I think, yeah, it benefits some counties, but obviously it's going to hurt other
Well,
counties. So,
that's why we added the piece regarding the inheritance loophole, because it's it overwhelmingly will bring in money. You know, we've looked at the calculations, and the money that comes in from the closing the inheritance tax far exceeds any
Okay.
potential loss that you could possibly have.
right. Personally, I love the inheritance thing, but, you know, personally, I think when someone inherits their parents' house and they're earning a good salary, it's still unfair that they get to pay that low assessed value. But I guess there's no way to ever close that loophole. So great, I
Well,
appreciate it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
We do what we can.
we do what we can, exactly.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mayor Scharf.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Vice Mayor Gibbons.
Thank you. Thanks, Sandra. Helpful presentation. Along the lines of what Mayor Schaaf just said, it benefits counties like Santa Clara, San Mateo, San Francisco. It benefits the counties that already have this exchange, where you can exchange internally, but allowing people to get the exchange going out of those counties does allow the property to be sold at market rate and generate new income for the counties like Santa Clara County. But
Right.
if you move to Yolo County, and I'm not sure I know the answer to this, and your answer confused me a little bit. If somebody bought a house for $50,000 and then went and bought and sold their house for $100,000 and then bought a house for $100,000, they would take the tax value of $50,000 for what they bought it at.
Correct.
I think, forgive me, and you can answer this. I think it's the tax rate, not.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, you're correct. It is the tax rate. It's
Okay.
the tax rate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That helps. But so the counties that they move to, and you're worried about schools and taxes and revenue and general fund revenue and fire departments, they actually can lose out terribly. And the reason I'm concerned about this, and again, perhaps explain, 2 years ago, I think, and it was a very bad measure. It had all kinds of little sweeteners in it. And this has improved on that tremendously, heritage thing and other things. But I'm not sure who's ever gotten.
Carmen, I think it's Carmen. Carmen, can you go on mute, please? Thank you.
Thank you. And you solved a lot, but I honestly see where it benefits. I'm going to call it the wealthier counties, the higher cost counties, because property will turn over at a market rate. I don't see how it helps low cost counties. I think it actually hurts them.
Well, I mean, you could look at any particular interaction and, you know, there could be winners and losers. But what we know is that right now there are people who want to move that can't move. And whether it's to move closer to family or closer to healthcare. And we're trying to make this so that they're able to do that. Most people are not going to move that far away unless they're moving with their family. And usually they're downsizing. The counties that you mentioned that are in the Prop 90 thing, they do not seem to be hurting from it. Their property taxes are still going up. People, you know,
that's my point. That is exactly my point.
Right. So, but in my area in Sonoma County, when we had 5% of the houses burned down, people wanted to move to another county to be able to, and they couldn't, and there was nowhere in the North Bay to move to. And they're comparable counties. So Sonoma, Napa, Mendocino would be sort of a comparable North Bay place for people to move, the same way San Mateo, Santa Clara would be. So we find that there's not going to be that huge discrepancy. We don't see everybody leaving Santa Clara and moving to, Calaveras.
I can see a lot of people doing that.
Well, remember this, you can only do it if you're over 55, disabled, or a fire victim. So it's not like, anybody who wants to go, can
Over
do
50
this.
I mean, I won't debate that. There's a lot of very good things in it, clearly. But thinking of it right now as a council member, worried about my tax base.
Well, you're going to get more money because
No,
we're
you're
gonna
not.
close-
No,
No,
you're
no,
not.
not from that.
Liz, Vice Mayor Gibbons.
Sorry.
In light of the time, I am going to move on to Councilmember Davis, but I think your point has been made. I think we all understand it. And I actually had a similar question. So I'm going to move on just in light of the time. Thank you, Councilmember Davis.
Oh, thank you. So Sandra, okay, so your presentation was good, but our city is kind of in a no action mode right now, and I'm City of Santa Clara, because we're really concerned about the property taxes and what that will actually look like if this passes or doesn't pass. And the headache that we just had recently was our $1.1 million of property tax for our general fund was taken away by the state. So that is now a cause for our concern from our general fund perspective. So we get a little hinky with measures because we don't, it goes to a proposition, it goes to, this is what it's going to be for, but then later down the road, it gets switched somehow. That pot of money goes somewhere else. So, my city manager and council, I guess, wanted to abstain on this one, but thank you for the information that you gave us. I just think that at this time with COVID, it's a little scary for us as council, elected officials. I can't speak for everyone in this room, but my concern is how we're going to deal with people going forward with the services that we need to provide for them right now and where that money is coming from. So,
Well, you'll get
but
money
I
from property
you did.
tax, and property
yeah,
tax.
the property taxes, yeah, it hurt us in our general fund right now. So I'm
But the
just saying,
property
we
tax on
don't know.
inherited homes, every inherited home, if it's over $1 million, you're going to make money. If they don't live in it, it would be like the house is selling and you're getting market value. I mean, this will bring in billions of dollars to our state.
But my city isn't laid out in that kind of right. So, I just have to say,
Sure.
we're just going to
Yeah,
abstain.
understood.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Blankley.
Yes, you may have just answered my question. I wanted clarification on if a home is inherited and the beneficiary does live in it.
Mhm.
The change Proposition 19 makes is that Proposition 13 protects only the first $1 million.
Correct.
Correct? So it isn't, Prop 19 is not only about inheriting property and then renting it as opposed to living in it. It also changes that if you do live in it and it's worth more than $1 million, then Prop 13 protects you only up to the $1 million.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Sandra? Mayor Wu?
I have one more. This is
What's that?
Councilmember Montano.
Oh, go ahead, Councilmember.
I just have a quick one. So I had a question. Does this Prop 19, does it change the transfer between parent and child, that reassessment exclusion? Does that go away with this new one that you're proposing?
Yes, I think that it is modified in the manner that we just discussed in terms of if you inherit a home from your parents, or in some cases grandparents, if the parents have passed on, and that house is $1 million or less, the transfer is still in place the same way it is right now. If the home is worth more than $1 million, then you pay the difference above that.
Oh, I get it now.
assessed value.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Wu?
Yes, hi, thank you. So I'm listening. I'm not 100% understand everything about the Prop 19, but what's going through my mind is a couple of the things. The first of all, the 1 million absolute number doesn't really work for city from cities, because for example, Los Altos Hill has a very high property value. 1 million, I mean, you're not gonna find any properties under a million.
Correct.
So I don't know where that 1 million come from, and I don't know how good of that benchmark is. So that's my number one question. Second question is, you said if the inheritance does not decided not to live there, an Airbnb or rent it out, and then you're gonna have to reassess the value. There's a lot of variable to this, because what do you think? I inherit the property and then I live there for a number of years, 1 year, 10 years, and then I lease it out back and forth. I can Airbnb, I can lease it out, then I come back again. How do you gonna assess the value when I'm living there? So you're gonna have to constantly change your property tax assessment value. So I'm not clear on that, how that will work. So that's two questions that's kind of like a pop in my mind while I was listening.
Sure. And, you know, when people file their taxes and they put where their primary residence is, that will be the indicator in terms of the assessment or reassessment trigger for the assessor. And, you know, people move, people do a lot of different things, and things change assessed values all the time. It's part of the routine that we have. You know, certainly this will put a new algorithm over it, but you know, in the long run, because we're really trying to put money into your cities and counties and special districts, it will pay for itself. Whatever mechanism has to be developed in terms of reassessing these properties and sending these bills will pay for itself. And in places like you just mentioned, where the property has increased so much, you can see that money going directly into the cities in this case. And you have many school districts whose sole funding is from property tax. Los Altos is an example of that. And you know, they will get an increase to their school district directly as this increases. And so, you know, they're not at the whim of the formula that's at the state level. And that's why we have the California Retired Teachers Association and several other schools districts who receive their money directly from property tax and see this as a benefit to them.
Okay, so how did you determine the 1 million threshold?
You know, I'm not going to say I determined it because I was not part of that negotiation. I think that they looked at, you know, across the state and determined that that is considered to be, you know, a marker that, you know, that people would understand that, you know, 1 million is kind of a significant number. And I think the legislature settled on that.
Right, because it's statewide too. So I don't see any more hands. So as I mentioned, Sandra, we did our own Oppo research, and a few people have already mentioned some of the questions we had. In addition to that, the argument that this will actually primarily benefit real estate brokers. You know, the current law is already sufficient. But the one I really want to touch on is one raised by the League of Women Voters, because as I mentioned, it really struck me that they're opposed to this. And it's their concern that this proposition doesn't help low-income seniors and families. So could you talk to that?
Sure. I mean, what we really have is a housing crisis in California, as you know. I mean, and one of the problems that we have is that people, you know, stay in their homes because they can't afford to move. And when people move out of those homes, you know, whether they're, you know, taking some equity or, you know, downsizing or moving in with other people, I mean, that's going to put more houses available for people to buy and also for people to rent. the thing that we realize now, with so few people moving, it has made it a seller's market, and the housing costs have gone astronomical, as you know. I mean, I live in a Bay Area town as well, and it's happened here. But with more people able to move, more houses on the market, more people able to, you know, downsize and so forth, it will become more of a buyer's market where they will be able to find those homes that you know, currently just don't exist. So we think it will help people. We do think that keeping the inheritance piece under $1 million is really to protect the lower income families who do want to pass these homes on to their children. I mean, like to my children. I mean, my house isn't $1 million, and you know, they would get that, and that's right now they can't afford to buy a house, so it will help them in order to keep that protected, that piece of it protected. So we do think this will help housing. Toni Atkins, the Senate Pro Tem, is a huge supporter, and the primary reason is that she really thinks that we're at a, you know, this sluggish market is, you know, yes, it will help people that sell houses. Realtors sell houses, they make a commission. You know, I don't find that as an evil thing. I mean, it's just what they do. And, but we do want more people to buy homes. And when you buy homes, it also helps the economy because people buy furniture, they do landscaping, they hire moving companies, et cetera, and that is a boon to the local economy. So we do think it's going to help everyone in the long run. And the money coming in can go to homelessness programs and housing programs. So you're going to get resources.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and thanks for making the time for us and answering all our questions.
I appreciate you.
Very helpful. You can stay on because after we ask questions of the speaker, we normally bring it back to the group for any discussion.
Absolutely.
And then if someone has a motion, we put that on the floor. So I'm taking it back to the group. Any further discussion on Proposition 19? I see Council Member Rennie with his hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. I would say, you know, in my opinion, I'm in favor of this measure because it gets us back to what the sole intent of Prop 13 was, which is to protect older people, allowing them to you know, keep their homes, or in this case, actually move their homes, allows them to downsize. I really like the closing of the loopholes because it wasn't meant for children to be able to rent and make money off of the rentals at lower tax bases. That doesn't make any sense to me. That wasn't part of the original intent. I think it's not going to hurt our high-priced county at all. My observation is as people get over 55 or 60 and start moving, they're moving out of our area to cheaper places. So that's going to free homes up, and the assessed value of that home is now going to go to market rate instead of staying pegged somewhere, you know, 25 years ago kind of thing. Of course, there'll be some people maybe that will move in to be closer to kids, but my observation is people moving out. It might hurt other lower cost counties a little bit, but those homes are going to be less expensive. So the assessed value they're bringing is going to be a lot closer to the value of the home that they're bringing. And remember, if people if they come in from a lower cost one, they now need to pay the difference between, you know, because they're going to have to buy a more expensive home if they're coming into our county. So I don't think it's really going to hurt people, you know, our county hardly at all. As mentioned, you know, there's supposedly a lot more funds coming in, closing the loopholes that will make up for that. But I think we actually may get more revenue by more homes being brought up to market level. So I'm in favor of this.
Thank you, Councilmember Rennie. Anybody else? Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
I'm willing to make the motion to, is the right term, endorse this
To
proposition?
recommend, so we're moving to recommend that the board endorses Proposition 19.
Yep, those are my words.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it if I can. I'm an alternate to the group. So the recommendation comes from the cities association, correct? Not the individual cities?
So the recommendation comes from LAC, which is the Legislative Action Committee. So we as a group, if you get majority supporting the recommendation, then we take it to the board meeting, which is right after this.
Yeah.
And then the cities association votes on endorsing it. And that's on behalf of all the cities in the cities association.
Right. Okay. I will second it.
Okay. So we have the motion by Councilmember Rennie, seconded by Councilmember Blankley. Auden, will you do the roll call, please?
Okay. Council Member Larson?
Gustav, did you want to? No. Oh,
Yeah, actually, I just had a brief comment that.
okay, go ahead. And I should have asked any comment after. Go ahead.
Yeah, my council chose to take no position on this, so I'm going to be abstaining on the motion. Thank you.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Nisa, we do have a member of the public, so we probably also ought to make sure that there's no public comment.
Hang on, look, shall I check in, Nisa?
I can hear you. We have a member of the public. Does he wish to say anything on this item, Proposition 19? Mr. Sinks?
Is he a member of the public?
I'm guessing not.
Okay.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Sinks.
I'm here listening to all the great arguments. Thank you.
Go ahead, Auden.
No, hang on, Nisa.
Oh,
am
am I
I
missing a hand?
Yes, one hand. It's
Go ahead, Councilmember Nis. I'm sorry. Oh, two hands. Councilmember Nis, go ahead.
so let me join Gustav. We don't have we didn't have a good enough analysis on this to take a position at our city level. So again, I'll abstain.
Thank you, Councilmember Nis. And then Vice Mayor Bernald. You are on mute.
Thank you. You think we get this down, but we don't. Our council has taken no position on any of these propositions. I will be abstaining.
Thank you. Next we have.
That's what I was trying to get at before I seconded, because our council hasn't taken a position either. So I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn by seconding the motion.
So I can tell you, Councilmember Blankley, I've seen council members from some cities, even if their council has not taken a position, still vote to oppose or support a measure or a proposition. Others choose not to. I don't think there's a consistent approach. So do you want to reconsider seconding the motion?
Point of order, you can still second it and vote against it. There's nothing that precludes that from the vote, so.
Right, but she may not even be comfortable seconding it, so I just want to make sure.
That's okay. Just leave it alone.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, discussed it at all. Okay.
Mayor Scharf.
Oh, I just wanted to echo what several others have said. On Tuesday night, we discussed all the measures and we decided it would be inappropriate to take positions on any of them. So I'll be abstaining on the votes for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Scharf. And then I see Councilmember Rennie has his hand raised again.
I just wanted to make the point that, if your council specifically said we don't want to take a motion, that makes sense. If you didn't even talk about it, because we bring many things to the legislative committee, which I haven't been on in a few years, that never come to our council. So you don't need to worry about that. But if your council specifically said, we don't want to take a position, that makes sense. But if you didn't talk about it, that's not really the same thing. But I would say it's sort of, what's the point of the recommendation? The recommendation is for the cities association to be recommending back to the cities that maybe haven't discussed it. We don't want to take a position. We do want to take a position this way or that way. So isn't that the purpose of this, is to provide our thoughts back to cities as a group.
No, the point of this vote is for us as the Legislative Action Committee to recommend to the Cities Association Board whether or not to support a proposition.
Right.
And then
What do
they
they
vote
do?
on it. And so the outcome is the Cities Association, which represents all 15 cities, would be saying whether or not it supports or opposes the motion. It's not a recommendation to take back to the individual council. And I think this is a very valuable discussion about how we all approach making this decision. But in light of the time, I do want to keep us moving. So we do have a motion on the floor. I see Vice Mayor Jones with his hand raised.
Yes, I was gonna actually make my disclaimer during the vote, but since everybody else is making it now, we haven't taken a position on it either, so I'm gonna abstain.
With, well, let's go ahead. So I don't see any other hands, so Auden, let's go ahead and have the roll call.
Let's vote.
Okay. Should I go through those who have already said that they would abstain as well?
Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, just go down the list.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
They were
the-
just explaining why. So when you
Okay.
call on them, they will just say abstain.
okay, great.
Nisa, really quick, this is Shantine. Did we get a second on it? I was a little unclear whether the second on the motion was retracted or whether that was going forward.
It was going forward.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying. Appreciate it.
Go
Sorry
ahead,
about that.
Auden.
Okay. Councilmember Larson,
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Bernald,
Abstain.
Councilmember Davis,
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Jones,
Abstain.
Councilmember Niss,
You're on mute, Liz.
Abstain.
okay. Mayor Abakoga,
Abstain.
Mayor Constantine,
No.
okay. Councilmember Turner,
No.
Councilmember Montano,
No.
and Councilmember Rennie,
Yes.
Mayor Wu,
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Fleegor,
Abstain.
sorry,
Abstain.
Councilmember Blankley,
No.
Mayor Scharf,
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Gibbons.
Abstain. The council chose not to take any of these up.
And then, did I
That's
say?
it.
Okay.
Yep,
Did
so the
I-
motion fails.
Thank you so much, Auden, and thank you, everybody. Based on what has been said, and because we only have 7 minutes left for this meeting, it sounds like a lot of members here will be taking either a no or abstain position on these propositions for different reasons. So I'll quickly just go through the three for discussion purposes. We can always make a motion, but just I'm getting the sense that a lot of people would be abstaining or voting no based on the statements that were just made. On Proposition 21, which is the rent control proposition, I was planning if we had time just to go around the virtual room and hear from the cities who currently have a rent control ordinance, and maybe from a show of hands, how many of the Santa Clara County cities currently have a rent control ordinance on the books?
It's only San Jose and Mountain View, isn't it?
Only two.
Campbell has one, doesn't it?
Gatos does as well, but I don't know if they're here.
Who, Margaret?
Los Gatos.
Los Gatos.
Bob Rennie's here.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's not anything new. It's just I don't even really, it's not something we talk about, so I don't really know much about it.
Okay, and I'm just curious, Vice Mayor Jones or Mayor Abakoga, have your cities taken a position on Proposition 21? What do you think about this proposition in light of your current rent control ordinance?
So our city hasn't taken a position. Our legislative affairs group is not recommended taking a position. So They've wanted us to stay neutral. And as far as whether our current rent control ordinance is effective or working, I guess it really depends on which council member you talk to. So I'll leave it at that.
Mayor Abekoga.
We're the same. We have not taken a position as a city. I don't know. I think we would be split. We could be split on this measure as council members. I would personally be inclined to vote no.
Okay. Anybody else? Any discussion on Proposition 21? Okay. Proposition 15, and in August we had, and I'm happy to see Mr. Sinks, who's appearing as a member of the public here with us, and I don't know if he will take the opportunity to talk about Proposition 15, but if you will remember, Councilmember Sinks, had a speaker join us in August to talk about Proposition 15. And at the time, many council members had preferred to take this back to their council. So we did not have a vote on Proposition 15. Now that we're a month away from election, we thought we would bring it back to see if anybody wanted to put a motion on the floor to support or oppose Proposition 15, or if we wanted further discussion.
I would put a
I
motion on
see
the,
Mayor Scharf.
Right, this is the one that our council did take a position in favor of at a previous meeting. So I would be able to vote yes on this one to support it if somebody wanted to bring a motion.
Thanks, Mayor Scharf. Then I see Mayor Constantine.
Move to support Proposition 15.
Okay, we have a motion to support.
Second.
Thank you. A second by Mayor Scharf. Any more discussion or questions?
Ooh, a lot of people.
So Liz is
I
trying to
see
talk,
the hands. I see Council Member Davis.
and Liz Nis is
Sa-
trying to talk.
Okay, Nisa, we're going to pass on this one for abstaining. We're worried about COVID and the impact it will be on businesses if they raise taxes. For small businesses, we're already trying to help them. So we'll be abstaining on this measure 15.
Point of clarification, Chair.
Go ahead, Mayor Constantine.
Proposition 15 does not affect small businesses or businesses that have property values less than $3 million. That's all I wanted to say.
Next, thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Nis.
so we discussed it extensively at our council and we voted to support it.
Thank you. Councilmember Rennie.
The bill is sold that it doesn't affect small businesses, but we just had, I think, was it League of Cities that Chappie was doing, or was it?
The Peninsula Division.
Yeah, and Larry Stone really gave a good explanation that it will affect small businesses. And I made the comment, I've asked in Los Gatos, one building in our downtown that typically fits 3 businesses is worth more than $3 million. Most of our businesses have triple net leases, which means they'll just pass the tax through. So I have no confidence at all that it's not going to affect the small businesses. Somebody might argue, well, that'll just, the rents will just come down to match it because it's market driven, it's not cost driven. I'm not comfortable that it won't tear up downtown Los Gatos. I kind of personally almost would hold my nose and vote for it, but I don't think it's good for Los Gatos. And so I'm not sure I can vote for this.
Thank you. And then we have Councilmember Larson.
Yeah, just quickly, my council voted to take no position on this measure, so I will abstain. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And then Vice Mayor Gibbons.
I'd just like to reiterate a comment. I did research on this myself, and it does get passed through to small businesses. The $1 million threshold, a bit of a sticky wicket. But this is another one where my counsel has said no, to take no action, so I will abstain.
Great, thank you, Vice Mayor Gibbons. And before we do the roll call, I will see if we have any public comment. Any comment from the member of the public? Nothing, Rod? Okay, I'll take it back to the committee. Auden, we have a motion and a second. Let's have the vote.
Okay, Council Member Montano,
No.
Council Member Turner. No. Mayor Constantine,
Got the mute, yes.
Mayor Abakoga,
Abstain.
Council Member Ness,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones,
Abstain.
Council Member Davis,
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Barnald,
Abstain.
Council Member Larson,
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Abstain.
Mayor Scharf,
Yes.
Council Member Blankley,
No.
Vice Mayor Flagor,
Abstain.
Mayor Wu,
Abstain.
and Council Member Rennie.
I'm gonna abstain because it's not clear whether it would hurt Los Gatos or not.
Okay, so the motion does not pass.
Can we get the final count, Andy or Auden? I'm just curious.
Three yes, 3 no's, and then the rest have abstained.
Thank you. Okay, and the last proposition with no time left is Proposition 16, and I know many members have individually endorsed this proposition. And so I hope that, if possible, a lot of councils will look at this proposition before November and consider this proposition, as it does impact a lot of the communities in our county. So with that, again, any comment from members of the public? Councilmember Davis, I see your hand raised. You have a comment?
We're doing 16.
I just mentioned 16. And would you like to make a comment on 16?
Yeah, our city wants to abstain on this one also.
Thanks, Councilmember Davis. And so if no other discussion or comment from members of the committee or the public, we will adjourn at 6:58. Thank you.